please, while the questions or talk, or please sit still, do the meditation. Don't fidget, don't move. It just disrupts the whole energy. It's just another 5-10 minutes.
I have a question.
Yes.
Could you describe the process of dying and being reborn and how important it is for our growth?
Um, can you repeat that?
Certainly. Could you describe the process of dying and being reborn and how important it is for our growth?
Look, it's the key to inner growth. We die at some point, but between the time we're born and the time we do leave the world, there are thousands of death and rebirths. There are thousands of changes that take place. There are thousands of renewal of energy, of opportunities to grow and to transform the way we've been living into a spiritual life. It depends on the person. Do they take advantage of that? Are they conscious enough to really listen to the process taking place inside them? If the system of a human being doesn't go through this, everything gets stale inside. Everything gets old. And it becomes like death before death. It becomes like living death inside a human being. But the best teacher of all of this is nature. I mean, look, you have winter, everything dies. Spring, everything becomes glorious. It's an incredible fulfillment of a cycle. And these same cycles take place inside a human being. And ultimately, you reach a very simple realization that Genesis did not take place 1,000 million years ago. It takes place every single moment. Every single moment of one's life is a moment of creation. Every single moment of one's life is a moment of renewal and the opportunity to grow. People are so inured to this, and they're so used to and conditioned with living in this kind of stagnant state that they live in, that whole renewal has it just left them. They lost it, And part of the meditation process is to regain that, to not allow ourselves to attain a level to think this is the ultimate goal of living. It's not. You have to understand that God's energy, spirit, higher energy is infinite in the universe. And there is no reward, there's no goal, there's no plateau that we can reach in life, that is the end of this process of, being reborn inside, growing inside, embracing spirit, embracing what's infinite in the universe. All of creative energy is infinite in the universe. It's in the unknown. And that's the whole process of spirit. Please try and sit still. That's the whole process of spirit. A spiritual life is renewal, it's resurrection. And that has to do with death and rebirth. Look, we die, physically we die, the body, the soul leaves the body. And if we haven't fulfilled our karmic requirements in a particular lifetime, the soul comes back in order to learn, what it needs to learn in order to ultimately become an enlightened being. So the whole process of death and rebirth, for many people, this is a scary thing because the whole word death is a scary thing. But once you evolve consciously, spiritually in yourself, there is no death. Life and death are part of the same, it's like the same mala, it's just another bead on the on the necklace. Life and death are one. What is left behind is a body. The soul continues to evolve and will continue to evolve closer and closer to a state of perfection. And the whole dying and being reborn, it's like cycles in nature, winter gives birth to spring, spring gives birth to summer. Summer is the beginning of the end of summer is the beginning, fall is the beginning of the dying process. Winter comes, everything is still. Everything is in the bardo zone, it's being prepared to be reborn again. And as soon as spring comes, it comes alive again. We follow the same cycles inside ourselves. And part of meditation process is building a system that enables us to consciously do what I'm talking about. Otherwise, it just gets done. And people live in oblivion, they live in some world that's totally spaced out, completely, divorced from any kind of reality that really goes on inside them. Hypnotized by material things. Leveling off. And it's like I always talk about that thing about Bach, I love that, where he was dying, last days of his life, and lots of people there, big family and friends and musicians. And everybody was crying and lamenting and grieving and mourning. And he said, "Why are you upset? I'm just going to where the music comes from." It's one of the most extraordinary things I ever heard. I'm going to where the music comes from. I'm going to a place that I can regenerate myself. And if I have to be born, I'll come back to the earth again. So cycles are essential in the growth process, and we all experience them. Women always talk about their cycle. Every month they have a period. It's just absolutely an essential element of living to learn how to be conscious of how to use cycles that take place. Relationships have cycles, jobs have cycles, businesses have cycles. And I am very much aware that when any door in that cycle closes, there's always another one that opens if you're growing inside yourself. If you stop growing, then the door gets shut in your face. Then you're like Kafka sitting in front of a door, waiting for it to open, or like those two characters in Beckett's play, waiting for Godot, waiting for God to come. So, all meditation is about is building a system that enables one to consciously use the cycles of life to continue a growth process inside themselves, gets closer to God. In this book I'm writing, I talk a lot about this. In this book about Tantra, I don't know how many of you read, but, we post online, but there's a lot of the writings that are about exactly this. Does anyone else have a question? I hope that's clear, Magali. It's a good question. Does anyone else have a question? Okay. Have patience. All of this gets clear if you do your inner work. This is not stuff I just read somewhere in a book. This is stuff that really is part of my living experience. In fact, I was just writing I'm working on number 84 of this 108 pieces that I'm going to put in the book. And it starts out with Shakespeare's "to be or not to be," exactly the same question we're going. And I was writing just about this, Does anyone else have a question? I have a question. I think, I'm not certain, but I think this book that I'm writing can be a very important book for people to, really read about deep spiritual practice, how it's done, how it works, and it's short essays. There's going to be 108 essays, only because there's 108 in Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism, and all of Asian religions is a sacred number. I'm not even exactly sure why it's a sacred number, but they consider it to be a sacred number. So I decided to do 108 of these pieces. Each one of them is going to have photograph of a very great work of art. And I was thinking of publishing this thing. And then the other day I thought, Stuart, this would make a great coffee table book, with art, with literature, and, and something people could, have on a coffee table. And my question is that if I, to do this, I'm going to have to find an agent, literary agent. I'm going to have to find companies that do this kind of publishing. And if anybody has any background or knowledge of this kind of thing, I am very interested in hearing from you. If you can help me, go further with this, this book that I'm writing. Does anyone have a question? Anyone else have a question?
Stuart, I have a question. I'm Sink.
That's called.
There's a voice inside of me that just won't give up. That says and for whatever reason, keep saying, I have to do this myself.
Right, I can't, maybe I'm just getting deaf. I don't know, but I can't hear you. I hear you, but you got to speak clearer, more clearly.
There is a part of myself that still believes that I have to do this myself. I know it's not true, but it's still nagging me. How to proceed?
Try it, see what happens. How to proceed? Look, the real independence I gained was the realization of how important it was for me to study with Rudy, to have a teacher, somebody who was wiser than me, who cared about me, who was willing to, impart truly profound teachings to me, who guided my life. I thought that was a miracle, just to have found somebody like that. And yet there was always a part of me, that wanted to do it myself. And I had to run away from that part, Bob, when I was younger, because I spent my whole life up into the point of meeting Rudy of wanting to do it myself. And I almost drove myself into an insane asylum. So, there's always that battle going on. And then Rudy understood that. That's when he sent me to Texas to run an ashram. He understood that I had to be on my own. I had to learn about this. And the last thing he ever told me before I left for Texas, the last thing he ever taught me, and I'll never forget this, He said to me, if anyone ever asks you who and what the guru is, you tell them the guru is life. And this was perhaps the most extraordinary teaching he gave me. It took me 20 years to really learn what he meant by that. I had to go run ashrams in Texas and New York and, whatever I did in my life, business and family and, in order to learn that the real teacher is life. But in order to get to that place, you've got to be in a situation that helps you to develop a system that's strong enough to be able to do that. And then you have literally, I have an eternal gratitude to Rudy because he was the one who got me there. It was his teachings, it was his energy, his Shakti, his living inside me, even 40 years after he died, that got me to that point. To say the same thing about Nityananda and the Shankaracharya. He did what he did because of his gratitude to them. So I don't know, yeah, we all want to, look, I won't, something happened about a month ago that was just shocking to me about somebody who was, anyway, I won't get into it. It was really shocking to me. But it's your decision to make. I mean, if you want to do this on your own, give it a shot, see what you can do. If you have a sense of, needing somebody who can help you get to that place where you have total independence because you are connected to higher energy in the universe, who's willing to get on the raft with you and navigate the whitewater rapids, There's no greater blessing in the world, frankly. I mean, Rudy used to go to Muktananda's place. He went there. He couldn't stand going there. I remember I was walking on 8th Street in the village with him, and there was some kid on the street selling Dayglow yo-yos. Dayglow yo-yos. We went and he bought a couple of them and he sent them to Muktananda. And he said he likes toys. But there was an underlying message there. They were in a constant war with each other, those two. It was really something to see. But he went and he spent 2-3 weeks in Muktananda's ashram, getting every ounce of Shakti he could get, every bit of teaching he could get. Because he knew, he said to me, Stuart, he's the only person I've ever met in my life who can break me down. And this was not easy for him. It was a horror show for him to go do that, what Muktananda used to do. He understood the power of having a guru. Then he was the one who brought Muktananda to America. I remember he had the ashram raise money. I think we raised $15,000 and he matched it so that Muktananda and his group of people could come to the United States. He housed them, he put them up, he did everything. And I got a good dose of that situation while Muktananda was in America, really. And I remember saying to Rudy, why do you do this? Why? He said, he's the only person I've ever met who can break me down. Stuart, I need somebody who can break me down, who can take me deeper inside myself. And Rudy, to me, was the most extraordinary energy I ever met in my life. Powerful, kind, loving, extraordinary being. And he told me this. And I also learned from him that real independence is recognizing that you're dependent on everything. Life is your teacher. You are completely dependent on life being one's teacher. But one has to build a system inside that does it. And it's a system that takes you beyond judgment, beyond right, beyond wrong, by opinion. You just open and embrace the Shakti, the life, the teachings, whatever life brings to you is there to teach you how to get closer to God. I mean, I didn't understand this, but after he told me that, it took 20 years for me to learn what he meant. And the only way I was able to learn what he meant is I ran ashrams. I've been teaching this thing so long. And part of me is tired of teaching it, but I still do it, because it really works. Does anyone else have a question?
Thank you very much, Stuart.
You're welcome, Bob. Bob, you've grown a lot just in the last 6 months, 8 months, and just let it go deeper, more open, and be grateful for whatever takes place in your life. Some
Thank
things are very difficult to be grateful for.
Thank you.
I've had things that were very difficult to be grateful for. They really busted my ass. But they began to work for me when I started to recognize that in order to deal with them, I had to get closer and closer to, higher energy in the universe. I had to build a system that was capable of dealing with some bullshit that nobody in their life should have to deal with, which I don't really ever talk about. Does anyone else have a question you would like to ask? It's been a very difficult year so far. And, people have gone through very traumatic situations this year. Use them to grow. Make your time precious. Use it to develop an inner life. Don't let 20, 30 years go by and, nothing has changed. Does anyone else have a question? All right. There won't be a class Sunday. We're having a retreat here this weekend. But there will be a class on Monday. And God bless you all and have a wonderful weekend. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody on Monday.
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome. Good night.